Welcome, everybody, to this morning's Bacon and Coffee back in the home studios here in Aurora, Illinois. Let's get started with our 30-second countdown. All right. Bacon and Coffee is back on the air, and it would not be Bacon and Coffee without our caffeine and bovine intro. Here we go, peeps. Mr. Mark S.A. Smith, that you do this and
Yeah, you've had me on the show enough. I know when that thing is going to come on.
Exactly. Yeah. So how the heck are you today?
And I am happy and healthy, easy and free. It is just the most amazing experience to no longer be possessed by my possessions as a nomad, and allows me to think up things to share with you and our peeps on the show that we're going to share today.
I love it. So where in the world is Carmen S.A. Smith today?
I am in Steinhatchee, Florida, little fishing camp directly west of Gainesville, Florida, on the coast. This place is amazing. The grocery store is essentially a convenience store.
Wow.
Closest grocery store is 20 minutes away. Closest real grocery store is 40 minutes away, as is the closest Walmart. So I'm in the middle of nowhere and I'm loving it.
Well, good for you. I'm glad you're down enjoying the sunshine, and unlike here in Chicago where it's 50 shades of gray, I think this is amicable gray today, as opposed to dark cloudy gray. It's always gray. And it's quite depressing. So I'd much rather be where you are, sipping some coffee, right, and eating some bacon.
That's exactly right. Got to strike up the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but the thing is we'll brighten your day with today's conversation, my friend.
I think so too. So, but before we get started, you sent me a caption contest, and I do this. If you guys haven't seen it, it's on Facebook only.
And you got to follow it. It's hilarious.
There's so many. Well, the cool thing about the caption contest, it's 100% self-perpetuating, meaning fans of the caption contest send me pictures for the caption contest. And you went online looking for something and found what and sent to me?
What I found is in Kentucky, the online portal for registering death certificates. And the entry point of the portal said, the person on the death certificate, and there's two buttons. Me, someone else.
And the best comment I got was from a speaker coach that I work with. Her name is Felicia Slattery. She said, this is definitely a government website, because if you press the button that says me, they're going to sue you for, they're going to basically investigate you for insurance fraud. And I thought that was brilliant.
Now, of course, if you go to the website now, they fixed it, but you went to the Wayback Machine and
yes, I did.
You found it. It's legit.
It's there. Yeah. I found it and copied it and put it up there, and it was awesome. So we're not here to talk about death. We're here to talk about, taxes, maybe, because we're talking about economy. We are going to be talking about the what kind of economy?
Well, we're going to talk about the transformational economy. And to help you understand that in context, we're going to talk about the past economies, because the past economies haven't gone away. It's just the transformational economy is beginning to emerge. And the emergent economy is the place where all the money is made in the economy. All the other economies, you can make money, but the profits are just not there because they're well established. There's lots of competition.
Right.
And the transformational economy, the reason why I wanted to talk about it is because I had this blinding flash of the obvious that, right, like the end of your intro, that the transformational economy is about to really take off.
So let me ask you this before we get started. When do we get to the transcendental economy?
Well, actually, that's part of the transformational economy.
Is it really? So,
It's dialed into that. Yeah,
you know what my all-time favorite transcendental joke is, right?
I do. It's the monk that went to the hot dog vendor.
Well, it was the Swami, yes.
Swami,
What did the Swami say to the hot dog vendor? Go ahead.
make me one with everything.
Yes, thank you very much.
So good.
Ba-doom. All
So
right.
good.
It
So
is,
good.
yes. Now, but you have to have pork hot dogs, not beef hot dogs. That's the whole point.
They're not hot
Because
dogs
this is
unless they're
bacon and
pork.
coffee. Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely. All right, so I'm going to let you.
Otherwise, they're kosher dogs.
Ooh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's true. Gosh, I never thought of that. See the things you learn on bacon and coffee. This is amazing. So I'm going to let you riff, my friend. I'm going to turn off our little stuff here, and I want you to kind of dive in and tell us about what is the trend. How did we get to where we're at?
Oh my goodness! Look at all my exposure here. I
Hey,
didn't.
that's fine.
I didn't clean myself up yet.
It's all good. Hey, you know what? That's the whole thing about being live, man. Is like, don't stand up, whatever you do.
My roots are showing.
Don't stand up.
Oh no, I match.
Okay.
but there are days.
Yeah. Oh, always.
Yeah, they're just the speedos. So. The reason why the conversation around economy is important is because every economy has a separate business model that allows you to make money. And every one of these economies is legitimate. You can exist in any of these economies right now today if you choose to do so, and no judgment whatsoever. It's just, what do you as the business owner choose to do? It really helps if you understand what economy you're functioning in, because you're going to choose the right business model, the right marketing model, and the right motivational alignment with your customers, instead of making a mistake out of it.
Okay.
So we start off with essentially it's the subsistence economy. That's where we started. And this is back in the days when we were cave dwellers and we were bear hunters and clans, and we would survive together essentially in subsistence. We only would kill what we could eat. We only would gather what we could eat, and we would only make what we could use.
So that was where tribes, the hunters and gatherers, and that's one of the things I talk about is tribe of 150 people that you can maintain relationships. So those are relatively small micro economies, right?
That's exactly right. They're micro economies, and of course, that doesn't lend itself well to business. Although we're seeing people revert back to that.
Yeah.
Where we're having micro cities being formed, and it's really amazing, where people are creating their own little communes to escape the insanity of the big cities. So that is a legitimate business model. You just, if you want to buy things that you can't create or raise or kill,
right,
you're going to have to in some way generate some sort of trade. Right?
Yeah, and I was going to say, is this kind of like a barter economy? Is that what it was based on?
Absolutely. They simply, that was back in the days when they used shells for currency, because shells were rare inland.
And you would trade pelts for, food or bones or weapons or whatever it was that you needed in order to hunt and gather, and so
or slaves.
Yeah, well,
they traded people. I mean, let's just call it what it is, right?
Yeah, right.
It's just what they did. If you went to war and you captured people, they were your slave.
Right. Yeah, that's very true.
That's just what it is.
Yep. So
this is not a discussion of morality. This is just a discussion of history.
Yeah, exactly. And history, history is what it is. So you can't change it.
That's exactly right. And so then we transitioned to the commodity economy. And this is where people started to establish land and started to grow crops. And over time, in the 1600s or so, probably 85% of the population were involved in raising crops. And that was really the beginning of the commodity economy, because, for the most part, wheat is wheat, barley is barley, carrots are carrots. And so at that time, the driving motivation for that was need. We need food. We need, the king needs food. The knights need food. The gentry needs food. So we're going to raise food beyond our needs, and we're going to offer that to our king and gentry so that they provide us with protection, so we don't have to go out there and defend ourselves independently. We can do this as a group. So that's really what they were purchasing. So, that's agriculture, mining, fishing. And what people were buying in those environments were necessities. And, in the 1600s, we started to see currencies. Well, actually, in Christ's time, we saw currencies. So there was the widow's mite and under Caesar.
Silver and all that stuff.
So actually, 2,000 years ago, we started to have currency to start to do this. So, that's really when I would say the commodity market got going, is when there was the introduction of coinage. So people were buying necessities driven by need.
And that's where the mining came in too, because the mining and a lot of the wars back then were fought over gold. They were fought over silver. Silver was primarily down in South America. Gold was, in Africa. I mean, there was a lot of territorial wars based on resources and things of that nature, going back to your history lesson.
Absolutely true. And if you could mine the gold and mint the gold, you didn't have to trade for it.
Right. Exactly.
Manufactured wealth. Woo!
Right. Woo-woo.
Didn't let somebody else sweat for it. All right. So the differentiation at that time was the quality of the commodity. The location of the commodity, was it where you wanted it to be, and then ultimately the price of a commodity. And ultimately commodities started to be sold at auction. And so commodities as a business are essentially price-based commodities. That's where we are now. Commodity is based on price, who's the lowest cost producer. And so that's where we end up being. And so then around the late 1800s, we moved to the product economy. I'm taking a look at my notes. Oh, let's take care of this.
There you go.
I feel so much better.
There you go.
We moved to the product economy. And this was the beginning of the manufacturing. Industrial revolution is where we really are. And I like to think that it really started with a blacksmith. The blacksmith was the beginning of the product economy, and it was there to provide tools, plowshares and swords and things like that. They were really the edge of that. And it really took off with the manufacturing of cars. Henry Ford creating the assembly line process, and then of course, we moved into appliances as we had electricity deployed through the United States. My mother, who was born in the 30s, she lived in a farmhouse that didn't have electricity until the late 40s.
Wow.
That wasn't all that long ago.
No, it really wasn't when you get back and look at it. I mean, from 1970 to the 40s is basically, nothing. It's like 1970 to 1907 compared to where we are at today. It's hard to believe it's kind of in that range.
Essentially I think what you're saying is that the 40s to the 80s as the 80s to now.
Right, exactly, pretty much. Yeah, it's 40 years. Yeah. So it's amazing. And the other thing too that I think we have to think about is I remember watching the Gilded Age, a series on History Channel or something about that. And I believe it was Dale Carnegie who owned the steel plants in Pittsburgh. Was it him or was it somebody else? I can't remember. It was him.
I don't remember if it's Carnegie or Schwab.
No, it might have been Schwab. It was somebody else. And if somebody's watching, they remember. But it was one of those guys. I mean, basically started the steel plants. And when they started the steel plants, they started creating railways. And the railways basically took all of the commodities out to different places. And that's when, towns started to pop up along railways and, basically shrunk the country by days, if not months.
Right.
And so all of that stuff, that had to play. So now we started to build transportation systems. And, that's the whole commodity economy that you're talking about, the manufacturing economy.
Yeah, that was the crossover between the commodity and the manufacturing commodity.
Right.
And that actually launched in 1866 when the Transcontinental Railroad was completed.
Right.
And that actually, I think, was Abraham Lincoln's greatest contribution to society.
Yeah, it was. It was his Eisenhower, expressway kind of thing.
He laid it out there first. Eisenhower showed it up for the trucks and cars.
Yep, exactly. So, amazing. Good stuff.
It is good stuff. I love this stuff. It's just, and what I really love is that we landed a man on the moon 100 years later.
Yeah, yeah.
1966, 1866, just 100 years between the Transcontinental Railway and man on the moon. That is mind-blowing.
Actually, I hate to correct you, sir, but it was 1969. It was July, I think, 8th or 10th.
All right. You're okay.
I am, because I remember it very well. I was actually in Highland Lakes, New Jersey, watching a TV out in our screened-in porch, watching that at night. I remember.
I sit corrected, which means that the railroad was completed in 1869 too. It was 100 years different.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Anyway, thanks for repairing.
Yeah, no problem.
Memory.
I generally don't want to. I don't like to correct, but since I actually was alive at one of those events, I remember.
Well, in this particular case, what you're doing is removing an error, which is completely appropriate. Thank you.
Oh, hey, it's all good, man. We all. If I was the only person who didn't make errors, I wouldn't be sitting here. I'd be rich.
So in the product economy, what people were buying for the first time was outcome and status.
Mm-hmm.
In the commodity economy, there was no way to really create status other than winning a blue ribbon at the county fair.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, very true.
But in the economy, in the product economy, you could buy a Cadillac and you'd be the coolest dude on the block. So we could buy status, and we would buy outcome.
I remember when my dad bought his Volkswagen. You know, he got that Volkswagen, and all the kids in the neighborhood would cram into it and all that kind of fun stuff. Even though it wasn't a Cadillac, it still was a status symbol because it was cool.
Well, it was an anti-status symbol. Remember, status can also be I'm the cheapest guy.
Right. Yep. Hey, it's whatever you want to be, right?
Whatever you want to be the best at.
Yeah, and that's when, houses back then. I remember my dad. I can't remember if he paid $3,000 or $6,000 for a house in 1960 something. 1959, and it's just rows of houses and cars coming in and people working in the cities, and so it was amazing. So. You have froze, my friend. I don't know if you know that.
Quite a time, my friend. So and I should be back now.
You're back.
You froze for a minute. Yep. You froze for a moment. I'm back. You're back.
Yep.
So we're good. So what people sold there, the differentiation was features, advantages, and benefits.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And people are still using that product economy, features, advantages, and benefits in an attempt to sell.
Right.
What's in the future economies, and quite frankly, it fails. Do not use feature, advantage, and benefit selling unless you're selling product.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, which totally makes sense.
All right, and what the person was ultimately purchasing is the identity of I'm an important person.
Mm-hmm.
That was ultimately what they were satisfying. And then in the 1940s, we made a transition. Post World War II, we made a transition to the service economy.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas in the product economy, we were fulfilling want.
Mm-hmm.
What we changed is that we were fulfilling demand, which is kind of an interesting way of looking at it. In the service economy, we were purchasing demand. We were buying time,
mm-hmm.
and we were buying skills.
Right.
And what that was ultimately doing was attempting to give person freedom to have more recreational time, because at this time we had 2-income households to pay for all those products.
Mm-hmm. So
of course we had to have services so that the people in those households could actually have a bit of a free life instead of doing anything. And it really started off, in my opinion, with things such as TV dinners.
And I remember those as well, too. I was probably eating one of those TV dinners watching the moon landing.
Probably so. But the idea of prepared meals was just unheard of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, that resulted in fast food restaurants. And in that service economy, we'd end up with professional services, medical, dental. And prior to the dentists, if you had a tooth problem, you went to the blacksmith.
Really?
Yeah.
He had the tools.
Yep. He would hold you down and pull out a tooth.
Wow.
That was the only dental services that were available.
That's why cowboys drank so much.
Ow.
Yeah.
So other services such as repair services, entertainment,
Hmm.
and maintenance services, and what a person identity the identity a person was purchasing in the service economy is I'm a free person.
Right.
I have free time. I've freed myself from those demands by buying those services. And of course, all the things we're talking about still exist. We still have
Right.
a product economy. We still have a service economy. We still have a commodity economy.
Right.
And then we moved up into around the late 90s, we moved to the experience economy,
Hmm. Hmm.
where people started to buy memorable.
Yes. And that would be, stuff like trips, Disney trips, travel got huge then. I mean, and the cost of travel became affordable for more people at that time.
Absolutely true. And
And
mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
And this is when we started to see things such as the proliferation of Chuck E. Cheese pizza places,
Yep.
where people didn't go for the food, they went for the goofy entertainment.
Yep.
And of course, arcades started in the 80s. That was part of that experience economy.
Hmm.
And it really solidified in the 90s with smartphones and online reviews,
Yep. Hmm.
where people were not only craving an experience, but wanted to make sure that their investment was an experience they wanted to have, and so relied on other people's experience to judge whether this is what they wanted as an experience.
Hmm.
So Yelp and Travelocity and all those good things. It also was the rise of all of the online services that we know and love and that dominate Wall Street: Netflix, Amazon,
Right.
Facebook, Google. Those are all experience economy companies
Right. And Blockbuster.
at one time.
Yeah.
And
there was
that was
there was a company that refused to transition, and that's why I brought that up, because I mean they Netflix offered to buy them, or vice versa, and they denied. And of course they didn't realize that the technology of experience was going to change. And that's one of the things, is that even though it's gone from having a physical DVD and a DVD player and going and renting a movie and having to bring it back and put it in a Dropbox, it's the same exact thing. It's just the way it's delivered is different.
That's right. What happened is that Blockbuster saw themselves as being in the service economy,
Hmm.
and Netflix saw themselves as being in the experience economy.
Exactly. Yep.
And as we transition into our next economy we're going to talk about, the same thing's going to happen. Companies that see themselves in the experience economy are going to be eclipsed by companies that are in the transformation economy, and they're going to go away. We're going to have another major turning in business because companies are addicted to their worldview, and that creates disruption. There's plenty of documentation about this how this happens.
Yes, absolutely. And in last week's Bacon and Coffee, I talked with Mark Babbitt and Chris Edmonds.
Oh, what great
And
people.
yeah, no, they're awesome people. And they talked about, where we're at in the pandemic towards the end of this, and how there's this huge transition going on. So I'm sure you're going to cover that.
I
But they were
am.
talking about the transition of manpower and how that works, and what people want and how they want to work. And it's all of the above. So fire away, my friend. So let's dig into, what is the transitional economy?
Well, before I say that, I want to give you one last item, which is what is the identity a person is purchasing in the experience economy, and it is I'm an interesting person. Excuse me. That's why people go to Vegas.
Yep.
So they can bring home stories they can tell their friends and be interesting. Did you watch the movie last night? Interesting person. Right? Look, let me tell you what I saw in Google. Interesting person. All of these things are designed to make you as a person more interesting.
Okay, so let's go through all 5 of those. I think there were 5, is that correct?
So far, yeah.
Okay, so let's go through all 5 of those and lay it out, simply saying that the first economy was this, and here's what the person ended up getting. So go through all of those so we kind of set the stage.
Sure. So the first one is the subsistence economy, and what the person was getting was survival. Right? And the next was the commodity economy, and what they were getting was the opportunity to buy necessities instead of hustle for necessities. And in the product economy, this is where we really started to transition into an identity situation. I'm an important person, buying status. In the service economy, they were buying freedom. I'm a free person. In the experience economy, they were buying, I'm an interesting person. And so now we're moving into the transformational economy. And the transformational economy, what happens is in the experience economy, people were craving being interesting. And now the transformational economy, people are seeking meaning. That's what they're doing. So people in a transformational economy choose meaningful over memorable. They choose authentic over theatrical. And they choose socially responsible over cheapest.
Interesting. And so in this new economy, what you're saying is that the people who are purchasing things are, number one, looking out for what is the meaning of life, where are they headed?
Yeah.
How can they take that purpose and then apply it towards the things that they purchase so that it makes a difference in the world? So their purpose is basically tied into what they're purchasing. And, again, it's more about applying meaning to things as opposed to applying status to things.
Yes. Status, as people have experienced, is fleeting. And we're seeing that in the cancel culture.
Yeah.
You can take a person of very high status and their status disappears completely. And they're no longer an interesting person.
In a blink.
It's the most amazing thing. So people are starting to say there's got to be more to life than status and being interesting. And so this craving for meaning. And so in the past, meaning was provided through churches.
Yes, very true.
We have had a complete and total collapse of churches as being a source of meaning. And they've been replaced as essentially sources of correction and condemnation. And it's obvious that there are many churches that are just as corrupt as anything else. And so the churches have collapsed because of that they've lost sight of their purpose has been to bring meaning and also to be the school of compassion, the school of empathy to humanity. So we've lost empathy, we've lost compassion, we've lost meaning. And this is something that people are seeking. The search is on for meaning, empathy, and compassion because people are seeing this as being completely absent and they feel empty.
And that's interesting because churches, it kind of goes hand in glove with the workforce issue is millennials, the way that millennials work. And this is what we were talking about last week. And I've talked about on the show with numerous different people is they want experience, over a work life, right?
Yes.
So they will always achieve whatever you ask them to do, but they won't do it 9 to 5. They'll come in at 6 in the morning so they could leave at 2 in the afternoon and put in their 8 hours and not take a lunch because at 2 they want to go out and go hiking or they want to go swimming or they want to do something else. And when they purchase things, they're doing it with a purpose as opposed to just buying things to accumulate, because that's the thing. I grew up, my dad coming from the Depression, he was very possessive about what he had, and then he taught me to be possessive about what I have. And here I am in my house going through all this crap that we've accumulated over 20 years. And it's like, this brings me no joy. Go away.
It's also one of the reasons why there's a demise of collectibles. Of course, that we're seeing a slight resurgence that in NFTs, but I see NFTs as nothing more than 2022 Beanie Babies. It's an attempt to use collectability as a way of creating value. I don't see that going well.
Yes.
It goes well for the sellers, but it's not going to go well over the long haul. That's my 2 cents. Take it as it is, simply a perspective of somebody who's seen Beanie Babies go for egregious amounts of money and then go for absolutely nothing.
Right. And it's funny because when we were cleaning out the crap, we found some Beanie Babies. It's like, ooh, these could be worth money. No, they're not.
No, they're not. They're toys. Let your dog play with them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Layla would love it. But again, it goes back to that concept of, that purpose. And so even when you're looking at employees, when you're creating your company, and this goes back to what we talked about last week about creating a culture, it's
Yes.
creating a purpose in your company that everybody aligns to.
Yes.
And then then that purpose has to be something that your customers align to too, right? So it's a bigger picture.
Yes. Well, you're going to align essentially between your purpose and the customer's purpose. It's going to happen naturally. The difference here, one of the big changes here is that we're moving from value to values.
Mm. Mm.
People are buying values, not value. A good example of that is cage-free eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Cage-free eggs are 2 to 3 times the cost of traditionally produced eggs, and they're in a recipe they are indistinguishable.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely indistinguishable. Yet, a substantial number of U.S. Food manufacturers have made the transition to cage-free eggs, such as Nestle and even Arby's. Blow my mind.
Yeah,
has transitioned to 100% cage-free eggs because that's the values their customers are demanding, and their customers are willing to pay more to support those values.
So there was I talked about the Caption Contest, and I do these other things called Deep Bacon Thoughts. And basically they are motivational quotes, right? I do them every single morning. And
good stuff, my friend.
Yeah, it's like I put the real life out there in the morning, and then at night we have some fun. But in the middle of one day, I posted something called Deep Kermit Thoughts, and he was standing there with a cup of coffee, looking out the window, and he says, "I wonder to myself, did I eat a cage-free egg from a chicken that I also ate?"
It'd be interesting to calculate the probability.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Because layers become fryers.
Exactly, yeah.
That's where fryers come from, right? Is expired layers. Anyway, I love it. That's such a hilarious idea.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that to somebody operating out of the product economy, the concept of using cage-free eggs is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Yet to a person who is operating from a transformational economy, the idea of paying extra for organic, cage-free, humanely raised is the only choice, and to do anything else is insane.
Right.
So,
well, and that brings up a conundrum at the same time, and maybe you're going to cover this or not, but the conundrum is, in order to afford the purpose, you're going to have to make more money, right? You're going to have to. Not necessarily. Well, you can.
No.
How do you do it then?
It's actually a share shift. Instead of buying the expensive Cadillac for status, you're buying a little Prius and then spending money on your transformation.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Right. Okay. This is the reason why we're having this growth of things such as tiny houses. Mm-hmm. Instead of having a 5,000 square foot house, you got a 500 square foot house, because that allows you to afford and support your values.
Right. And that's why we're moving from a 3,700 square foot house to a 1,500 square foot house. It's just the same thing. It's like to basically, condense down the money that we're paying for this asset, which is an asset, but it's a very expensive asset, and we don't use a quarter of it. And why not get into something where you're going to use every room and have a guest room when you need it? That's all it is we're taking all 4 of the rooms that we use. The office, the kitchen, the bedroom, and the dining room, or the living room.
That's it.
Those are the 4 rooms that you use with an outdoor porch or a patio or something. Yep. So that's experiential. But those 4 rooms plus a guest room, and that's the whole house.
That's exactly
so what you're
right.
Exactly talking about is that.
That's exactly right. We're trading possessions for values.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I've gone from a 5,000 square foot house to a 1,500 square foot house to a 200 square foot house.
Yeah.
And my guest room is the Holiday Inn.
Yeah.
Or if you're cute, you can share my bed, but there is no guest quarters.
Well, I expected you to stay in a Red Roof Inn. We'll leave the light on for you, that kind of thing.
I think that's
There's
Motel 6.
experiential. Yeah.
I
Motel
think
6, whatever. It's yeah. That's right. Tom Bodette, Motel 6. Thank you,
that's
sir.
it. You're all welcome, my friend. We just help each other stay on the straight and narrow.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It's all good. All right. So keep going.
So
Keep banging away here.
So a couple of elements here. Okay, so it's we're buying meaningful, authentic, and socially responsible. We're buying values instead of value. And a good example of this is things such as the emergence of life coaches. So the transformational economy is I am a better person. After this experience, I am a better person. And so, life coaches. I mean, do you know people that have had ayahuasca experiences?
Yes.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it's the thing, because that's a transformation. They see the world differently after they've had an ayahuasca experience.
Right.
And so therefore feel they're a better person because they see the world for what it is. Ayahuasca tends to strip away some interesting ego illusions.
Yes.
Which are very painful to remove.
Yes.
Most people want to be stuck with their ego illusions. A great example of that is things such as emotional support dogs. And I don't mean to tell anybody that they shouldn't have one. They should. But the reason why people have them is because they felt abandoned and they feel their dog won't abandon them.
Right. Well, which is very true.
Absolutely.
It's very, very true.
And but they've created an illusion around that lack of abandonment, and I can prove it to you. The dog's on the dog's on a leash.
Right. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
But you point that out to a person, they're going, no, the dog loves me. Well, no, the dog could not survive without you.
Right. Yeah.
Your cat could survive without you, but your dog cannot survive without you.
Right.
The dog cannot hunt. The dog cannot take care of itself. In an area where we have coyotes, your dog is not going to survive leaving your house. Your dog isn't going to abandon you because it can't. That's the illusion. Right. But it's okay. You get to have that illusion. If it makes you feel better, have the illusion. Please. Yes. Please. But things like ayahuasca make those illusions completely disappear. That's why why they seek them. And I'm not telling you that's something you should do, but I also understand the mindset behind why people do it. I want to find something that is true instead of something that's an illusion. Ayahuasca just destroys illusions.
Yeah, and so one of the other things that you brought up the religious experience, you brought up this empathy, which I think is huge. I think that's one of the things about this economy is it requires people to have more empathy.
Yes, it does.
And the weird thing about it is and I don't want to get into politics, but there are, there's the them, they, set of people. It's your fault. Everything's you, it's not me. You're the problem, that kind of stuff. And then there's the more empathetic side of things, like we're all in this together, we're cohesive, we're trying to do this for everyone. And so that becomes a little bit of an issue, I think, don't you?
Well, the transformational economy is going to drive politics to a different place.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Politics is still based fundamentally on the commodity economy.
Right. Very true. Yeah.
There have been some services, there is no experience other than pain. And so as people embrace values, the basic strategy of politics is not about values.
Right.
And so we're going to see a reinvention of politics. What's that going to look like? I don't know. But it'll sure be fun to watch, and it would be fun to be invited along to help make those adjustments.
Yeah.
But politics will change. It will by nature change because people are changing. And in a moment, I want to share with you why I see this accelerating.
Well, go ahead and continue on, because I'm very interested.
So the fundamental idea here is in the transformational economy, people buy I'm a better person. And what that's going to mean is people are buying values, people are buying socially responsible, people are buying planet over profit. And we're also going to see a reemergence of spirituality because people find meaning in spirituality. And this is going to be very interesting because we're going from a place of low in spirituality to a resurgence of spirituality. And it's going to be very interesting to watch.
And
Very interesting to watch.
well, and again, I'm not trying to, get too, ingrained into culture, but I mean, the difference between spirituality and religion is spirituality is you being one with everything else, and
That's right.
religion is everything else tells you how to be you.
Yeah. Traditional religions were based on being a government for the tribe.
Right, exactly. It was keeping people in line, giving them rules, those kind of things. And spirituality is more about discovering who you are and how how you basically embrace the rest of the world around you.
That's exactly right. And most religion is based on fear, and spirituality is based on expression of love.
Exactly. Yeah, which gets back to the empathy thing.
Yes,
Bingo.
exactly.
I love that.
But and the reality is, if you're going to be a socially responsible company, if you're not based, if you don't have love, and I mean agape love, the highest love, the love for
Right.
humanity, if
Mhm.
you don't have that as one of your core pillars, your claim of social responsibility is a manipulative, empty promise.
Mhm. Mhm.
So those that are, you can fake it, but you can't fake it for long.
And you can't make it if you fake it.
No, you can't. In this case, you cannot make it if you fake it.
Right.
So, um, so the transformational economy is going to be very, very interesting, and what's driving it is that we live in a world of extreme pain,
Mhm.
more pain than ever, and we've just finished 2 years of deep psychological trauma and deep wounding.
Very much so.
And there are three base fears that humans have. These are wired into our DNA,
Mhm.
wired in our DNA to help us thrive and survive.
And public speaking is not one of them.
It's not. It, it, so the three base fears, and this is comes straight out of psychology.
Yep.
The first one is the fear of abandonment,
Mhm.
that you're going to be left behind by your tribe, and of course you can't survive without your tribe. This goes way back. This goes back to subsistence living.
Right.
And so if you're turned into a pariah and you're abandoned, then that's one of the great fears. You're going to die.
Mhm.
The second one is smothering.
Yep.
It sounds like a really weird term, but what it means is that your freedom is reduced. You could be smothered by a bad relationship. You could be smothered through things such as incarceration or slavery. Slavery
Mhm.
is a smothering, and this manifests with people that have fear of small spaces.
Mhm. And
There's
drowning too.
absolutely smothering and drowning, or that fear of drowning, is right in that same wheelhouse.
Exactly. Mhm.
And then the third root fear is fear of annihilation. Now, obviously, all three of these result in the fear of death,
Mhm.
right? But annihilation is not just death, it's the removal of the memory of your existence from humanity.
Mm.
And this is what Genghis Khan did to his enemies. He didn't just kill his enemy, but he killed his entire enemy's tribe.
Mhm.
And so he removed the memory of that enemy from the existence of humanity. This is very effective in controlling populations.
Mhm. Yes. Yes, it is.
Well, my friend, we have just been through 2 years as a world experiencing separation, abandonment.
Right.
We couldn't get together. We couldn't see each other. We couldn't hug each other. We couldn't touch each other. We couldn't go to funerals. We couldn't go to weddings.
Right.
We were forced apart. We abandoned each other by the demands and commands of our leadership.
Mhm.
Deep wounding. And we were smothered. Triple mask, anyone?
Mhm.
Physically smothered and deep wounding. And then annihilation, we had no idea where we were going to survive this pandemic. The fear of annihilation just ran so strong.
Mhm.
And so the entire world has deep wounds, and they are seeking healing, and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go.
Mhm.
And I think that as COVID restrictions are lifted, people are going to go out going, whew, but how do I heal this wound? And this is going to accelerate the transformational economy like rocket fuel. And so those companies that can bring healing to customers, and I don't mean just physical or psychological, I mean just as part of what they do. Now, the high level solution to this, we can talk about this a whole lot more deeply, but the high level solution to this is make people feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
So that what that means is when you provide services to them, you focus completely on them. Nothing else distracts you. People have to feel seen. That's the reattachment from the abandonment.
Well, and that gets to the core of, I've been in the mode of relationship marketing for 10 years, right?
Yeah, you're damn good at it.
Thank you. And relationship marketing is really about creating connection between people. That's the whole point. I mean, the whole system that I built up in this company, and the most successful, and this is what I'm trying to do, is make your point, to say that the success that we've had of connecting up salespeople and putting them in front of customers and getting customers to have a conversation with salespeople, which is the major outcome focus of what we do,
Sure,
has grown success in companies because people are looking for that relationship. They're not looking for a solution to their problem. They're looking for an ear to bend to be able to have a cohesive existence.
it's an authentic relationship that they crave.
Right. And it goes back to your race thing. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Relevance
Mm-hmm.
is relevance, authority, commitment to your commitment.
Mm-hmm.
But the commitment to their commitment can only come after they see why it'd be valuable to commit to you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Right. But you're right. You're spot on. They want a relationship that goes beyond just the transaction. So,
Mm-hmm.
it used to be we'd fool people into liking us. And then after the transaction, if we showed up, they wouldn't even remember who the hell we were.
Right.
They want an authentic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So you're spot on in what you're expressing there.
Well, and let me give you a clear-cut example of this too. So the other night, I mean, there's a new Taco Bell that opened up right up the street, right? I mean, I can go get cheap food, and it tastes good. There's not a whole lot wrong with it. But there's a taco place that's in a strip mall. It's a little bit closer. I mean, by a yards. It's not that much closer. But you walk in there and the owner greets you and you have this deep conversation. It's like, how are you doing? How's business? He says, I'm really having a hard time finding people, but we're surviving. And, it's hard to compete. We can't do all these other things. But the bottom line is we had a conversation.
Yes.
I can't fix his problems. He wanted somebody to talk to who understood what was going on. And the bottom line, that food tasted so much better when I came home.
Yes.
It really did. It really did taste better. The meat tasted better. The vegetables tasted better. It just, because of that experience, I think the product was better.
Well, it is better because it's an authentic product. What
Right.
Taco Bell sells is reheated food that comes from a central commissary.
Right, exactly.
Versus the food that you eat from your local taco shop was made with love from the family recipe.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Big difference. Big difference. All right. So seen is a critical component.
Right.
The next thing we need to bring is soothed.
Mm.
You're going to be okay. This is going to be okay. We're going to make this work. This might take some challenges. This might take some work, but we're going to figure it out. We're going to work it out. And so that's how we provide people with freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Is we remove the smothering by soothing them.
And that goes back to what you were saying before with empathy. It's being a good listener. It goes back to the most basic thing I say all the time. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we listen twice as much as we talk. So we, as entrepreneurs, as business people, have to learn to be patient and listen, correct?
Indeed, we do. And we also have to bring forth humility, which is we think of them before we think of ourselves.
Excellent.
And that's where soothing comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is going to be really hard for us to do. I don't know if I have the people to do this. All right, that's smothering versus, I'm smothering the other person.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Versus saying, we're going to work this out. I've been in business for a long time and never run across a problem we didn't ultimately solve.
Right.
So you're going to be okay.
Yep.
Right. And
exactly.
And actually that is tactical humility.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You don't present your problems to the other person because that's not why they showed up.
Right.
You get to do that to your vendors, but you don't get to do that to your customers.
Good point.
And then the third healing bomb for this is safe.
Mm-hmm.
Is annihilation. We're going to keep them safe. So that's the bomb for annihilation, is you're going to be safe. I'm going to make sure this happens. You're not going to get charged if we can't make this work. Whatever it happens to be, you have to help them feel safe. Seen, soothed, and safe are the ways that we can add behaviors to our business to start becoming part of the transformational economy. They're a better person because they feel seen, because they have been soothed, because they feel safe.
And so let me give you another example of the safe side of things. The safe side is where we're in the middle of this huge supply chain issue, right? You can't get certain things. You can't get paper. You can't get wood has gone up, all these things.
Yes.
What safe feels like to some customers is nobody can get this stuff, but we are here to keep you afloat by helping you through the alternatives until things get better.
Absolutely.
It is, again, going back to that empathy and listening. So, by the way, if we can't get you new equipment because it's not shipping, because the parts aren't there, we can help you repair the equipment that you have and maximize what you have.
Right on.
We can, if we can't supply you with labels, we will go find you, paper or labels or lumber from another supplier to make sure that you have what you need so that we can continue to support you. So it also means not putting 100% of your profits as a main motivator. It's more about making people feel like you are there to keep them safe, right?
Absolutely. And when you do, you create loyalty. Seen, soothed, and safe create loyalty.
Yeah.
And while you may trade some profit on a single transaction, what you're going to do is you're going to reap profit from a loyal customer that refuses to do business with anybody else, regardless of price, because price is no longer the driving factor.
Right. So is there anything else in this transformational economy that we need to, the transition to transformational, not transcendental, transcendental. So in this transitional, traditional, whatever the heck kind of economy it is, what are some of the things that people need to start doing now to either, kind of mold themselves into it, prepare for it, or optimize it?
Well, the answer may surprise you.
Okay.
Start working on yourself. Your business can only be as authentic as you are. And whatever path that happens to take, whether you get a life coach or you get a spirituality coach or you find some way to improve your authenticity, to establish and identify your values. It may mean that you need to go through an identity exercise to change your identity from a smart business person to an empathetic business person. And while that may feel like it's absolute lunacy, when you dig into it, you realize that it's truth.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who say, Mark, there's no freaking way I'll ever do that. Fine. You get to be whoever you choose to be, but you're not going to participate in the transformational economy. You're going to stay within the experience economy. And, the experience economy is going to still exist.
Yep.
So you don't have to transition to the transformational. This is not required. This is optional.
Right.
And I'm telling you, while it's not optional, this is where all the profits will be made. That's a different thing. So interestingly, you will be more profitable being empathetic than you will be by being smart. That is the paradox of the transformational economy, my friends.
So, and again, going back to what I said, it's a very relational experience. It is much more relational. It's much more time consuming. This is not the set it and forget it, cash money machine, pull the lever, yay. This is something that you're going to have to invest in yourself. You're going to have to invest in your clients. You're going to have to invest in your people, right?
Yeah.
And it's not the old days when working at AT&T, you trained people to be efficient and productive and all these other things.
Yep.
And you're much better off putting in a nap pod than, an espresso machine, because you need people to work on themselves as opposed to just getting, hyped up on caffeine. Right.
Well, that's an interesting metaphor, because I'm with you, because one of the things we leave behind when we move into the transformational economy is hustle.
Right.
There is no place for hustle in the transformational economy.
Yeah.
Because hustle is not authentic. That's fake it till you make it, ain't going to work anymore.
Right.
It works for the experience economy, but it doesn't work for the transformational economy.
Yeah. And so what do people, aside from getting, working on themselves, getting a coach, what else do they need to think about or do?
All right. So the next thing is to establish your values. Once you've
Mhm.
worked on yourself, establish what your values are. What are your core values?
Mhm.
What are the things you will stand for? What are the things you won't stand for? And then once you can establish those values, then you can start to build a company culture that reflects those values, because you're going to only be able to lead from authenticity. The people
Mhm.
you want working with you are going to be authentic people who will only follow authenticity
Mhm.
and who will only connect to those with the same values. And then your customer set is going to choose values over value. And interestingly, about 20 years ago, I created the 4-quadrant model. I loved them.
Mhm. Yes.
And on the x-axis was values low to high,
Mhm.
and on the y-axis was value low to high.
Mhm.
And so, in the low values, high value, that's where places like Walmart live.
Right.
And in places where it's high values, that's where that side of the experience is where companies like Whole Foods lives.
Mhm.
Is where they're trying to do their thing to be friendly to the planet. And so we can, you could sit down and create a chart like that, low to high value versus values, and identify where you live. And ultimately, the transformational economy is going to be high value, high values.
Right. Mhm. Yeah.
Right. That's
With
ultimately where we have to be.
So in the last couple of minutes, do you have an example of a company that has transitioned into that in a way that it's been successful and is going to be a good model for people to follow?
Yeah, we're really at the beginning of starting to see companies that are truly transformational.
Mhm.
And remember, the idea here is you're a better person for doing business with them.
Mhm.
And I think Apple has actually led the way. They started off really strong in the experience economy. If you unboxed an Apple product, it's a hell of an experience. But they've moved to the transformational economy through their ecosystem of things, where your Apple Watch will say, "Oh, this is you," so I'll unlock your laptop,
Mhm.
and where your iPhone says, "Oh, you just connected to your Jambox, so you want to listen to music,"
Mhm.
and where it provides you with ways of increasing the meaning of your life by pushing away all of the administrivia that is taking you uh, away, that distracts you.
Yes.
So while they're not completely transformational, they are certainly on the path to transformation.
Mhm.
Um, Probably a transformational company is Elon Musk. He runs transformational companies. A good example of that is a product-based company such as GM. Well, they spec the chips in. We can't get the chips, so we can't make the trucks. Elon is like, so what chips can we get? We'll
Right.
just rewrite the software.
Right.
That's transformational.
Right. Yeah, very flexible.
Well, flexibility is part of the transformational process. Is that who do you want to be? Let's help you become that person.
Mhm.
Now we're going to see more and more. I tell you another transformational company, Peloton.
Mhm.
And the
Mhm.
reason why is a person after experiencing their bikes is a better person, and they're using motivational strategies to help that person stay on the track of being a better person.
Yep.
Versus going to the gym, which is a big deal for a lot of people, and it's very threatening to a lot of people. Peloton created this environment where you can be a better person with our our system, not just the bike, but the experience. So they're blending the experience economy and the transformational economy into a single unit.
Mhm. Well, I'm sure we're going to be hearing more of this from you in the not too coming distant future, because you always tend to ride these trends, and you're always one kind of micro step ahead of everything else that's going on. So I appreciate you and
Well,
your time, man.
thank you. Well, the reality is I just finished a series of books on how do you become a company that can be transformational.
Mhm.
And it's in pre-publication. The first one is the Nimble C-suite. So nimbility is an element for transformation. Nimbility is the
Mhm.
intersection of resilience and innovation. And nimbility brings agape love to a company. You have to do it. And so
I
we describe how do you actually make that happen. And we do it, we do it in a way that's absolutely logical and business savvy. This is not foo-foo kind of stuff. And then the nimble company, which talks tactically about how to make this happen. So yes, I am fully entrenched in this idea of helping companies become transformational. And it is a journey. It is not a switch. There are many things that change.
Absolutely. So if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Always the best way is get a hold of me through LinkedIn so we can stay connected over time and space. I'm about ready to change my company name. So, I got to transform too.
Yeah, as we all do, my friend, as we all do.
So just go to marksonlinkedin.com and say that takes you directly to my profile. It's just a redirect URL straight to my profile. Say, hey, I saw you on Bacon and Coffee. I'd love to connect. And I'll be delighted to spend 20 minutes talking with you about whatever's on your mind.
Well, Mark, as usual, thanks for coming on and dropping a huge sizzling bacon knowledge bombs on my peeps. And I so appreciate you. I look forward to the next time we get together and do this, my friend.
Likewise, my friend. You're a great blessing in my life.
Thank you. All right. We'll talk soon. Take care.